Mindset is everything.
It's true.
Again, my daughter was diagnosed right after her second birthday.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah,
with
I didn't even know
leukemia. And I mean, she's good now. 5 years now she's been good, but that took us by storm. And what I noticed, kids, ignorance is bliss, dude. She'd go to chemo and then just wanted to go get ice cream. Just wanted to watch Boss Baby when it came out. Just wanted to see if we could stay up late and she could help make the pizza. She had no clue that what she was going through was like extremely challenging, has like a 30-something% death rate, you know, all these things. She never knew, and it never sweat her, you know. She took it like a champ, and she'd have meltdowns because her body was just tired and she didn't know why she was feeling so cranky, and she was on steroids. She blew up. Yeah, she kicked its ass, man. We got very lucky.
Yeah, I think there's a silver lining to everything. All right, Trev, we're both in our I guess you could say you're in your mid-30s. I'm in my late 30s.
Easy. 34. Just turned it.
So would you say that's under mid or something?
Yeah, well, we're rounding. My kids are working on rounding in school right now. Yeah. So we're rounding down at 34, right?
We got to do whatever we got to do to kind of like get that placebo effect.
Yeah.
For us to feel young now.
Oh, yeah. Being a dad has aged me a little bit. It's no longer aging me faster, but initially, the first few years of becoming a parent, man, I aged like 5-6 years, it felt like, in the first 2-3 years.
Yeah. You know what? Tell me about that a little bit, because we're going to talk about, being in our quote unquote midlife or in our 30s and doing jiu-jitsu actually. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good segue to kind of get into it. How does it feel to like have kids and what you just said, like to be able, take me through the process of like having kids and how it's changed pretty much your life. And then we'll kind of get into the jiu-jitsu aspect of how that kind of changed, with kids and all that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it changes my marriage, changes the relationship, of course, my work-life balance, everything. So naturally you're kind of giving up certain things you're passionate about, or hobbies or spare time activities, weekend getaways with the wife that were just spontaneous to California. We used to do them all the time. Now you can't do anything spontaneous. It has to be planned out. And it's just waking up earlier, staying up later, snuggling the kids to bed. So there's not a lot of time. You have to make time to create romance in the marriage. You have to make time to create time to go to jiu-jitsu or the gym. Initially I gained, my wife gained 20, 30 pounds getting pregnant. I gained like 40. It was nuts, man. The sympathy weight was real.
Sure.
I packed on some weight, and that's when my back got bad on me. My L4, L5 went out, herniated down my sciatic nerve to my ankle. And I had a doctor get really blunt with me, and that's what helped. He said, "Of course your back hurts." He goes, "The surgery was successful. I had to have a discectomy, have the
You had surgery, dude?
Very minor. No, it was an in-out procedure. Okay. There was no fusions, nothing serious, but that nerve was so herniated that it was on my sciatic nerve big time. It was bulging. So he had to scrape a little bit of the fluid off and close back up the disc. And he said, "You're good." He goes, "But you'll be back. With a belly like that, I'll see you again in 5-6 years." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, man, strap a 50-pound Tupperware to your stomach, walk around, pick up your keys when you drop them, do everything all day. And of course your back hurts. Drop the 50-pound Tupperware off your belly and maybe I won't see you again." And it clicked. That just hit. It took someone being that blunt.
That's so interesting.
He was spot on. I'd never thought about it like that. A 50-pound Tupperware over my belly. I'm like, yeah, man, he'd be walking like this all day, right? So it just clicked. I dropped from 265 down to 205 in like 6 months.
Congratulations.
It wasn't probably the healthiest way to do it, but I mean, I was eating. I would just, I'd wake up, have my banana and protein scoop with a little bit of milk, That was my breakfast. And then I'd have a good hearty lunch, but I'd pretty much skip dinner and just have a meal supplement smoothie from the gym every day after my workout at night when the kids went to bed. And I dropped the weight quick, having like one meal and 2 smoothies a day. So that got me back on track, got me back into the gym. But it's hard with kids, man. I'm constantly in a battle between my kids are getting older fast and I don't want to miss any more time with them. I'm extremely sentimental about time. My daughter, my older one's like up to here on me now. And
how old's your oldest?
8.
8, okay.
8. And So it just changed my prioritizing time and work and energy, and it's all going towards the kids, you know? And so the wife and me, you know, you go in and out of ruts where it's like we haven't even barely talked or had a date night in weeks. And so it's constant. It's just so much to keep up on.
Is that a big deal as far as like marriage, that you have to put that aside because you had the kids? Is that like something of a priority, or is it just like straight up your kids as a priority? Like, does it affect your marriage in any way, not being able to go on, you know, like the spontaneous date nights and all that stuff?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely at first. Now we both understand it is what it is, and we make time for each other a lot better. But the first couple of years, it was like the romance was just out the window because of it. You know, well, you're not able to take me out. And, oh, well, she's not able to, you know, give me a back rub or make breakfast anymore because she's feeding a baby. And so we both would almost get bitter about how busy we are and how little we're getting from the other person because they're so busy becoming a parent and learning what it takes. And so there were periods for sure where we get bitter at each other, and she'd start not wanting me to go to jujitsu, come home and help with the kids. But, you know, and it took years, but finally she understands now. That's my outlet. I need it. If I don't go to jujitsu, I'm less for everyone else also. Especially with my ADHD and my work schedule, it's the only way you'll get like a calm version of me is if I can train. When I don't train, when I fall off the wagon, when I was gaining weight, higher blood pressure, a little more edgy, you know what I mean? I'd be tired for no good reason. So, took a couple of years, but now we know, you know, we both need our outlets. She needs her time and I need mine. You know?
Yeah, dude, that's a good way to get into it. I think jiu-jitsu, that's probably the most common, I guess you could say, a trait that everyone has is that they use it as an outlet for something.
Yeah.
Whether it's to regulate their emotions, maybe it's just to get away from the house, maybe, you know, to set kind of the day off.
To have a team of boys, because I was starting to feel like I was losing myself as far as having friends. You know, a lot of my friends, they didn't have kids yet, so they'd still be going to play poker. They'd still be going to go to the clubs. They want to meet up at 11 o'clock at night. I can't do all that when I have kids, so I need to find other people that either have kids, which honestly, it's hard making friends with your kids' friends' parents just because we both have kids. There's nothing in common.
Yep.
You have to find friends that do something you find interesting, you know, friends that are like-minded. And in jiu-jitsu, we almost all seem to be, in a lot of ways. We have totally different lives, me and you, but there's probably 15 things I could write down that we both agree are like core values we have to be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very
and
true.
I see that a lot in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I was talking to someone here on the podcast about the very same thing. And I have, obviously, we go to Syndicate and I have a lot of people over here. I interview a lot of people from Syndicate.
Yeah.
And we all have the same like commonalities. Like, we're all pretty like consistent and disciplined, I guess you could say. You know what? Sometimes we'll like fall off a little bit, and you know, life will just happen.
Life gets lifey.
Life gets lifey. But then you have like almost the skill sets to go back, right?
Yeah.
Like even if you fall off, since you made it a habit to go to jits and you really like it, not to say that it's easy to just go back and then get things rolling again,
Right.
but then you know how the shit works. You
Right.
know that it's going to be hard in the beginning, just like with anything else. If you lift, if you do jits, anything, you know it's going to be hard, but then you have the expectations already in your mind, which makes it kind of easier to start over again.
100%.
If that makes any sense, it's almost like you go there, it's like, okay, this is going to be rough, but then you know how to stick it out. It is a skill set.
I've done it before. I've felt the high of succeeding at it, you know, of having a crazy hard training class and then going to get acai bowls with the boys afterwards and just feeling part of something bigger than me, and that feels like I'm self-improving and I'm there to also help other people. Yesterday's class, I felt that way big time, man. I didn't even have the best rounds because I kept going with these guys that would approach me with questions. I have my nephew who started and my buddy's son started, and his friend came with him, and they all got questions for me as if, I mean, I'm only a purple belt. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe ask Jerry or Shane, but I got some tips and tricks.
Sure.
So I spent half the class just showing them how to get out of mount, showing them what to do from mount, you know, and to be of service, to help like that, huge to me. Just felt great, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's giving back. Even at the lowest level, I think that's one of our biggest purposes, is just to give back, to be of service.
There's nothing more gratifying than that, right? I often think about this in life, is that regardless, like sometimes I get really deep into it, which I probably should, watch the boundaries on that. But sometimes I'll think like, am I doing it as a selfish reason? So what I mean by that is that we all do the same thing, right? In jits, me and you have been going for a while. Obviously, we have a lot to learn. We're only whatever belt we are. But sometimes I'm like, am I doing this because I want to be that good guy and it gives me a good feeling? Because in some sort of way, you want to do it because you want to be altruistic and do good deeds, right?
Right.
But at the same time, it's for selfish reasons. It's kind of like, well, it's still giving you a feeling of like being able to help someone regardless of what the reason is. But it's almost like, it's giving me a feeling too. So it's kind of selfish in a way. But I've come to the conclusion that, does it really matter?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, at the end of the day, it's a win-win fucking situation.
Yeah, exactly. Win-win. Why can't it be both? You know what I mean? Like, I stand at my kid's school and look around and think I could dominate every one of those kids. Sure.
That's so common. That's so common.
But we all do it.
Yeah,
but I also love to help someone that I can tell wants to learn and is a bit insecure about it. You know what I mean? Because we were that guy once, right? Mm-hmm. I saw yours with Dave, and he's who I started out with. He's the one who I was in Muay Thai striking, and he walks over to me and just immediately grabs me by the waist like a weak takedown attempt on purpose. I realize now that I know what I know now, he kind of baited me into it and wanted to show me everything I know is worthless against jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? And because, he threw a horrible takedown. I kind of defended it. So he went down. I was on top, and it made me confident enough to be like, oh, I'll show him I could wrestle a little. That's all he needed to 10 seconds later have me tapping.
Yeah.
And I was like, what was that? He goes, oh, you toughed it out. It was pretty good. And I was like, let me try again. And so we went again, and I was trying so hard. And it was like another 25 seconds tapping. And so I'm just like, God damn, I need to switch over to jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I have so much to learn there. Whereas in striking, I can't be taking hits to the head all the time. I have kids. I have a full-time job. I'm not, you know what I mean? My brain I'm going to need for my entire life. I'm willing to sacrifice a shoulder or a knee every now and again in jiu-jitsu, but my brain I'm going to need my whole life. So I made the switch. But Dave, man, I used to tell everyone, I got this chipped tooth from Hulk Hogan's nephew. You know what I mean? I'd tell him, I had one cracked rib once from Dave, from Hulk Hogan's nephew, And so it's a cool story for me. My boy King Dave, dude's a beast.
It's war stories.
War stories. It was supposed to be a teep, and man, need me in the tooth.
Yeah, and it does happen. It's just
I'm still licking my tooth to this day.
That's what I mean.
King Dave.
I have proof of it on Instagram too. I got with my boy Isaac.
Yeah.
We were sparring, and obviously unintentional. Or was it? I was just playing.
I love you, man. Yeah.
But we were sparring and Muay Thai sparring, and all of a sudden he went up. I slip a lot, being that I started primarily with boxing.
Okay.
So I still have those habits of doing this, kind of rolling.
Right. A lot more dangerous.
And then you overdo it and realize there's kicks involved.
Yeah.
And he went up with a kick. I was actually too close to his body, and his knee. It was meant to be a kick, but his knee connected with my eyebrow here, and it's just completely sliced me open.
Is that when that happened? Okay, yes, I saw that one on Instagram. Here. Yeah, you had a nice little battled scar there.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that it didn't. It looked worse than it seemed. I probably could have kept going, but then I was bleeding out so much that I needed to go obviously to the quicker and get stitched up.
And we don't want infections.
Yeah, exactly. And but the whole point is, I think what you just said is that most people go through that. It's kind of like, I know more than one people. Dennis, the Russian guy,
and he's older than us.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, he's 45 years old, and he's just a fucking tank. I've talked about it in this podcast before. I strive to be him when I turn 45. Like I
had no idea he was 45. I thought he was like 28.
That's what I mean.
He gives me a hell of a hard round, and I'm 60 pounds heavier than him. You know what I mean? His frames, his technique's perfect.
And you could tell he's figured out what his game is going to be, right? Like anyone else. Like it's manageable, I think, for he looks good and he's strong and and all that. But I think he's figured out like to his what he can do to his age, and he fit his game to what he can do.
Absolutely.
With maybe the pains that he's having, like all of us are. Like he's a pressure kind of guy, right? Like it's like he's not as like what do you call this? Like agile going around and like some people's game, but I think to me he's figured out what his own game that's suited to him particularly is. Right? Like for me, I'll move around a lot because I'm a smaller guy. I weigh a little bit less, and it works for me, right? So that's kind of my game. For him, it's like if he's nailing you down in side control, he's just pressuring you down. And then once you move an inch, he'll adjust with you with an inch. Like it's interesting. It's like a lid. He's trying to close the gap.
Surprisingly hard rounds. The first few times I went with him, I was surprised by it. Because typically when I'm that much heavier than someone, I just feel obligated not to be too heavy and just stay in top side control like a dick and just be lazy. You know what I mean? I got to block the hips, circle the north-south, start trying to go for some setups, be more active, have more movement. That's been my goal the last few months. But then I get guys like him, when they're smaller than me, I feel like I have to stick to that. But then if they do get to top side control, I'm like, damn, he's got some strength. He likes to live here too.
Right.
And so I got to play the game, But I noticed the same thing with you. I thought if I could get on top with you, I could hold you down. You're smaller than me, good amount. You're strong. You have good frames, good technique, and give me a hard ass round every time too.
I appreciate that. I think I learned that from Jerry. So we talked that, by the way, Jerry's podcast, that one, I actually messaged Jerry this and I was like, dude, I've never seen long form podcasts, especially on like YouTube. It's hard to watch, right? Because people's attention spans, like they can't go past like an hour.
30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah. It's like, and that it's the CTR, like the people's click through rate is like 2 minutes. You know what I mean? When you see it on the YouTube statistics, which just shows a lot. But his podcast, I got to mention this before I go into the other topic, it's just, it has like, compared to my other podcasts, right?
Yeah.
It has like 2,000, almost 2,000 views.
Interesting.
And the CTR or whatever, and the length of time that is being watched, it's like, wow, people are sitting there and actually watching it like on their TV, like how I do with podcasts, but most people don't, right?
Right.
And it's just like,
why do you think?
I'll tell you why, because he was very, very concise. I think part of it is there's a bunch of reasons. Part of it is because it's Jerry.
Right.
He runs, I think a lot of those guys are through from like his Instagram, right? They're interested and they respect the hell out of Jerry, and he's a great coach.
Makes sense.
So that's part of it. They're like, oh man, I want to learn from Jerry. Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm going to watch his podcast, see what his philosophies are. The other part is just that he's very concise when he talks. Like I'm surprised by a lot of people when they come on here. I'm like, you're an eloquent speaker.
Yeah.
Like I don't think a lot of people notice that. Right. Like I'm starting to get that from you too, right? Like when you first start off, I'm blown away a little bit. I'm like, wow, like that was crazy. And with Jerry, he has a lot of students. Yeah. And like sometimes I don't want to like ask to roll with him because I know he's like a busy guy, but he's willing to help. It's just my end of how I think about it. Right. I'm just like, dude, I
know. I always feel bad asking too.
You know what I mean?
I want to every class. You know what I mean?
But, right. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, saying that, it's crazy. I think, he's just concise. He's very informative, obviously. Yeah. And he's been doing it for a while, and he's just...
And he's about our age also, so he's been in the sport for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's... so relating to what I just said about, how Jerry's way of teaching and how he got so many views on this podcast, it's all of that. It's just a mix-up. And I knew it too. As soon as the podcast ended, I was like, oh, that was good. I'm not just saying that because it's Jerry and he's our like BJJ coach. Right. I know there's a lot of status signaling around there. Right. Like I go to syndicate and stuff like that, and you should be proud of that. I think it's great, but there's a lot of like, oh, I'm so thankful. Like, you know what I mean? Like I get to do like, okay, we get it. I do, we all do it. I get it. Right. Like it's like, oh yeah, like I got a crew with me and stuff like that. Like,
Right.
we're all signaling. If you're posting it on Instagram, we're fucking signaling. Let's just put that out there.
Flex. We like to
Of course,
flex.
and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just pinpointing something out.
People confuse it with me with like the standard, college student trying to flex to his dorm mates or something.
Sure.
Me, I'm just trying to let the wife see what I can do, and she
There
ain't
you-
really, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's
we set up
signaling.
that camera, let her see me smoke a couple white
There you go,
belts, and
dude.
I'm getting some all weekend. It's a good time.
Yeah. but yeah, like, so relating to that, we're back coming full circle where we were going, where when you were telling me, like, because when I go with bigger guys than you, bigger guys than you, I tend to notice that they'll kind of lay, you know what I mean? And as they should, because it is a strategy.
Right.
But what I've learned from Jerry, back to where I was getting at, is that when you move, you're going to fucking tire him out.
We get tired.
Yeah, we talked about it on the podcast. And I told him, I was like, oh, because I used to be the type to just lay there. And as long as you couldn't choke me out or get me into armbar,
Right.
then I'm like, I thought I was like really defending, right?
Right.
But if someone's fucking hitting you up and stomping you on your head, I don't think you'd be doing that.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
Yeah,
Then you
it's so
got to get to
practical.
moving.
Yeah, so that's what Jerry was talking about too. We went over a lot of things. Like he approaches jujitsu like it has to be very, very practical. You have to, like, buddy, if you're in a street fight, just like what I said, if you're getting kneed in the face and someone's soccer kicking like your ribs, yeah, you're not gonna lay there and be like, do jiu-jitsu as a sport.
Right.
Like, you have to be really practical about it. That's why he preaches that you should go with everyone, whether it's MMA fighters or someone more aggressive or bigger guys or smaller guys, and all that stuff.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm trying to work on the most, because that was my whole game. Get to top side control, win the scramble, get to top side control, and I got a few subs from there. Now, years later, I've evolved it a lot more to where now I can, do all my other stuff to keep moving, at least on top. I don't like to risk losing top, so I'll keep, I'll go to north-south, start looking for a darce or an anaconda or an arm triangle or mounted triangle, but I don't like to lose top. I got to get over that fear. Sometimes I'm starting to let people just start from mount or start on my back because I need more time just practicing getting out of there and practicing breathing and not getting tired so fast. Because I do. When I start
Very
scrambling for
interesting.
positions,
Yeah.
dude, I get tired, man.
Do you think it's more like when you're down there, right? What are some of your thoughts about that? Is it an ego thing? Is it because you'll get tired when you're trying to get out, what you just said, get out of that position? Is it kind of like, oh, I'm not going to let this motherfucker is it
Right.
the ego thing? Is it, what is it? Man?
And
What do you
it's
think?
all because after this long doing it, it's kind of evolved. Initially, it was for sure an ego thing. It was like, nah, man, I can't let this dude hold me to the mat. What if my wife was watching? What if my kids were here, right? I need to know how to get out of every bad position. Then it was, well, I'm not going to let them sub me. They're going to hold me here all they want. I'm just going to breathe. I'll survive it. I'm not going to let them sub me. Then I was, again, starting to be comfortable with letting them put me in the bad positions. That way I can work my way out of them and know that I can go for a submission because I'm not worried my defense is sharp, right? So even if I don't get the sub and I end up on bottom, I'll get the sweep, I'll come back out and they won't tap me. It's evolved now to where I don't want to get injured. So now I'll let people pass my guard. I'll let people get top. It just happened last week and it irritated me. My neck's been kind of hurting. But I always smoke the guy. So I let him go. I want to practice some defense. I also don't want him to hate me and think that I'm no fun to roll with. So I let him get some good natural advances, Next thing you know, he's putting his knee on the back of my head, and really putting force on it. He'll be in top side control and doesn't know what he's supposed to do next. So he starts just jamming down my head. And I'm like, great. So now I'm just getting my head worked by this dude because all he's got is size and he's squeezing, and it's like, and so it gets me irritated. I'm like, I want to let you work, bud, but you're just sitting there squeezing.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Let's start setting something up. So I'll start trying to escape. Next thing you know, I'm spazzing out of a horribly attempt arm triangle or some sort of weird neck crank, and my neck hurts more from some blue belt I should have never let get there. But I was trying to let the kid work, And so it's a little bit of all. It's a little bit of ego sometimes when it's a like-sized dude and about the same rank as me. Who we've always been back and forth with. I just went with Gio yesterday. That's my boy, right?
That's the man right
We
there. Shout out,
always
Gio.
have, yes, sir. Yeah. We always have close ass rounds, but honestly, he takes the edge on me. Always has. He's always had a little edge on me. Yesterday, I was able to hold that full down and mount for a couple minutes, make him sweat a bit. and we'll give each other shit. We're talking shit to each other and all that. But
There's no other way.
there's no ego there, right? He can smoke me some days. I'm like, whatever, lying there in my puddle of sweat. We're just like, fuck you. And then we move to our next round. Whereas with some guys, they got such an attitude and they're naturally just putting such force on your head. And we're not boys like that. So my ego comes into it then. And I'm like, nah, I'm going to show you I'm stronger, you know?
Yeah. You know, the interesting part is that I think in some sort of way, that's why me and Nick talked about this actually. Like that's why I kind of go with the same people. So there's like a whole thing to that, because yes, I do want to go roll with different people, which I do from time to time. Right. But mostly you kind of roll with the same people, like you and Gio and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Number one, you don't want to get hurt, okay? Because you know how someone rolls.
Right.
Number two, you're comfortable, with them. But yeah, I just, what you just said, it's just kind of like, man, it's not, the other side of not getting hurt to that is that I don't want the ego to like come out. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's because, yeah, I kind of feel a little bit if you're kind of like in the same rankings and then, same size,
And we've
whatever.
never really rolled. I got to show you what I got.
Exactly.
Right?
And then if you fill them out a little bit,
Right.
and then you're close, you're matched up very, very closely. Oh my God. And then you're going at the same intensity.
Right.
And I understand it's a sport and we're doing it to, relieve some tension and doing it for other reasons. But that's just, it's primitive.
Yeah.
It's as primitive as it could be. And it's kind of like, oh, I'm going to edge this fucker out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean? Well, and it could be good sometimes. I had a round with a guy, I didn't know him, but he was a little smaller than me, and he had the cauliflower ear, and he looked like he was good. I could tell. I figured he was at least purple belt, maybe brown or black. I didn't know, and I didn't even want to know. I didn't even ask. I just told myself maybe he's blue or purple. Who knows? We ended up going. We had a really hard round, and I could tell he was good, but I felt like I was taking the edge on him. And I learned afterwards he's like a competition 80cc gold medalist, brown belt, right? And I'm like, damn, I did good against him. Once I knew, I didn't sub him, but I did good. And once I knew that, the next couple times we went, the guy was working me over. It's like I knew too much. Sometimes it's almost better to not know the guy, and you kind of you don't put any limitations on yourself. Once you know a guy's a brown belt or a black belt, you start thinking, well, he knows I'm a purple belt. He's going to find something, and I'm going to fall into his trap somehow.
Yeah.
So it's almost nice not to know the guy sometimes.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like when you're assuming that he's like whatever, a brown, or that's the whole status thing. It's almost like, and that's with anything, right? It's not just jits. It's just kind of like, oh, that guy's already, you're settling yourself short already, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
100%.
You're just like, oh, I'm not that good. So it's not, you're like almost, I don't know what you call it, between guys T levels, or maybe you're just your confidence in general.
Right.
It just fucking goes down, and you're not at your full potential.
Right.
Instead of like you being matched up, you're like, oh, I'm going to win no matter fucking what. And that drive is like everything.
Right, right. Because when you don't know they're a black belt, you think, oh, they haven't seen my main moves. Once you know they're a brown belt or black belt, you're like, oh, they've seen everything I have. They've dealt with 100 guys just like me, I'm sure.
Right.
All of a sudden, you're not going for it with full confidence. And
exactly.
you pay for that.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah.
Yes. So how long you been doing this now?
Jiu-jitsu, about 5 years. Martial arts overall, like 7.
7 years. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, both of us, we've been going to Syndicate for a while, and like I was talking to the other guys. Yeah, that program is, insane. Again, like I had Jerry over here, and I've gone to other jiu-jitsu gyms, which I won't name, but it's just compared to the other ones. Jesus, man, it's just the repetitions that we fucking get on. Yeah. And I've said this before, but Jerry runs it's funny how Jerry does it, because he'll say he'll joke around and be like, all right, guys, don't be sitting out, or else you're like a little bitch. You know what I mean? He's kind of joking around with it.
No one's going to remember your name. And now I say that shit. People will be like, oh, I'm going to take a rest. I'm like, that's why no one will remember your name. You know what I mean? And it's true. Or, I don't know if you've heard me. It's inappropriate, but every now and again, we just yell and call him cucks. He's sitting on the side watching you cuck.
Right.
Because coach is right, man. You true. Get repetition even if you're losing, right? People think I'm only getting good reps if I'm winning, which I thought too for a while. But now I realize all those times, Ryan and Val, I'd be tired. He's a black belt. He'd smoke me, but over time, I'd feel him block the hips, spin a certain way. I'd feel the setup coming. I'd start to notice what he's doing, and I'd be harder to submit. Sometimes I'd survive a round with various people. And again, if Ryan's watching, I normally don't survive the round. The guy's an animal. He'll banana split you in like 10 seconds.
Right.
It's an embarrassing way to get tapped, to say the least.
Sure, yeah.
You ever been banana split, dude?
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
I hate it.
It is.
It's the worst thing.
I mean,
so it
I
made
hate
me
to
say
admit that,
I
but
will
yeah.
not invite my wife to competition because God forbid,
Like, if you get in a twister.
But that's repetition, man. You feel people working, you're tired, you can barely breathe, but you just slap hands and go, dude. And then they're going to do their thing. You're going to survive. After a minute or so, maybe you feel you got that underhook. Okay, I can get a sweep. You're back in the game, you know? And then we're laying there in our puddle of sweat when the timer goes off. But no restaurants. I've been sticking to that for almost 2 years now, except for if I'm injured. If I'm injured, you got to still have a brain, right? But no restaurants.
Right, exactly, yeah. One of these things that I mentioned, I'm kind of going to pivot a little bit.
Yeah, I force you to do that. Sorry.
Yeah,
Tell
no,
your viewers.
no.
I have ADHD. This conversation is going to be all over the place.
Bro, it still relates. Recently, I got diagnosed with cancer, right? Pancreatic cancer in particular. But here's my point. I'm gonna say, everyone like the sob story, but it's the jits part of it. What I wanted to talk about. The reason why I bring that up is that regardless of, and martial arts in general, okay, it doesn't have to just be jits. It could be Muay Thai, hitting pads and stuff like that. But I don't, this may seem arrogance, and I've thought a lot about this, and I've always wanted to say this on like this podcast. And thank you for being here because you're one of the first ones that I'm talking to it about.
Okay.
Right. But reframing is everything when you get these kinds of diagnoses, when it's life and death, right? It's
100%.
almost like you can kind of lay down and you can be like, you can go to other avenues. You can try to forget about it. You can go into substances, right? You can lay down, be depressed. But
100%.
then relating to what I was going to say about with martial arts just in general, this is what I've been training for my whole life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like I kind of had a revelation the past few days, and I know I haven't been to chemo yet, which is coming,
right.
But I feel good now, but right? Like we'll see where we're at in like 2 weeks. But regardless of, I think I built the habits, and this isn't like just trying to be cocky or anything, but I think I built the habits for myself to be able to withstand whatever's coming. You see what I'm saying?
100%.
That relates to like what we're talking about jiu-jitsu, because it's such a powerful motivator. You've created that habits for yourself. Like we talked about, you fell off, right?
Yep.
Like at times you got really sick, you got injured, you had a minor operation, and yet you're still here.
Yep.
Right? It's kind of like, wait, you resort to the same thing, which shows how much you built that skill set of, because it is a skill set.
Right.
Like being able to build that powerful habit that of just going jits and doing something that you love. I think martial arts alone and having it interconnected to like eating good, eating better, because now you realize you're like facing death or whatever and all this. It's a skill set that I'm glad I already have. If I didn't have this thing, if I didn't train myself pre-diagnose and I was to start over, holy shit, bro.
As like, someone who's eating unhealthy or just laying around in the dark all day, not getting sunlight on you, not training, maybe drinking all the time, it would eat you alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus it's going to be like a couple hard camps and a few hard trips to the steam room for you. You know what I mean? You're going to kick its ass. I already know, because mindset is everything.
It's true.
Again, my daughter was diagnosed right after her second birthday.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that.
With
I didn't even know
leukemia.
that.
And I mean, she's good now, right? 5 years now she's been good, but that took us by storm. And what I noticed just by the survival rates on it, it's higher for kids than it is for adults. The same sickness, leukemia. It's a higher survival rate for kids than it is for adults. And that's because adults, unlike kids, my daughter would go to chemo, and then as soon as I'd pick her up, she wasn't feeling great, and I could see it, her eyes, she was tired. Are we going to go get ice cream? Can we go watch that new show you said was going to come out? She doesn't even know. She thinks every kid's going to do this. She had no idea she was different. She wasn't doing, like my dad always says, you're stinking thinking, man. Stop, get out of your head. Wow. Kids, ignorance is bliss, dude. She'd go to chemo and then just wanted to go get ice cream. Just wanted to watch Boss Baby when it came out. Just wanted to see if we could stay up late and she could help make the pizza. She had no clue that what she was going through was like extremely challenging, has like a 30-something% death rate, all these things. She never knew, and it never sweat her. She took it like a champ, and she'd have meltdowns because her body was just tired, and she didn't know why she was feeling so cranky, and she was on steroids. She blew up, but we'd feed her, and that girl would eat, and she'd sleep, and yeah, she kicked its ass, man. We got very lucky. I think I told you that when I first saw you at the gym last weekend, but yeah, it was the best case of a worst case scenario. You know?
Absolutely, and fuck, there's so much to unpack there. Number one, what stuck out to me with that is just, ignorance is bliss, especially when you're a child, because I don't think you have I know that you don't have like a full capacity of like what really is going on, especially when that happened maybe when she was diagnosed 5 years ago.
Right.
And going through the treatments, it's just kind of like, and I'm sure as parents, you guys had the obligation to keep her from that.
Right.
And that is such a wild story, because regardless if you have a cancer diagnosis or not, like fucking it's again, going back to it, if you trick your brain into knowing like, oh my God, this is the worst disease in the world.
Right.
Again, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a nocebo.
It's a bad placebo effect. Right. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, nocebo.
You're so
exactly.
well spoken, my friend. Nice. Yeah. See?
Yeah.
It's a nocebo effect. Yeah,
Right.
Absolutely. I believe in that 100%.
Yeah.
Because again, she is the proof in the pudding to me. And we got intertwined with candle lighters and Cure for the Kids. We even got sent to Disney World from Make-A-Wish, which I thought was only for like a terminal thing, but apparently it's not. So we were very involved in the community. And again, that's what I saw. All these kids were kicking its butt because they were positive. They saw all the other kids there. They just thought, that's what we're doing. It's like going to get your vaccine.
Right, dude.
But chemo. Yeah. And man, it's just nuts, man. I have videos I'll have to show you later. But yeah, she's blown up and she's just dancing to the Trolls theme song in the kitchen, Wow. But an hour before that, she was having a meltdown over the mac and cheese being in the wrong color bowl, and she didn't know why she was so cranky. And she, definitely didn't feel good plenty of the time. But as soon as she felt a little better, even just a sweet bowl of ice cream or anything would just cheer her right up. And she was the most positive person in the room. I see adults, because I go into 5 or 6 homes a day with it all the time, and it'll be an older guy, smallest diagnosis. He's already a stress ball. And I mean, I know it's a diagnosis of cancer, or leukemia, or even if it's not, it's something smaller, but he's already a stress ball. He's already has all this, he's still working. He has a wife he's fighting with, and he's just negative about everything. And it just always breaks my heart, man, because they seem to survive at the least. I'll see it. I'll go back out there a couple years later, and now I'm just talking to the wife,
Right.
It trips me out, man. I think it's mind over matter on almost all parts of our life, Yeah,
that's an amazing story. Can you tell me a little bit of fuck, man? This might be a little heavy, but then can you tell me a little bit about like what you felt being as a father?
Oh yeah.
Dude, like, I'm going to let you
I'll summarize it to not Let's not make this super long.
Unimaginary, like, to me,
Right. Yeah, and it was, dude. I thought I was living in a dream when I first found out. It was a trip. But yeah, she was sick and just pale and complaining that her leg hurts. It took like 5 weeks, dude. 5 weeks going back and forth to the doctor before they finally found out it was leukemia. First, they thought it was like a joint, a cold virus settled in a joint. Apparently that's possible. They thought it was all these different things, maybe a fracture in her leg. And so it took 5 weeks, which really pissed me off because, with cancer, sometimes I didn't know what leukemia was yet. So I'm like, has it gotten to stage 2 or 3 or 4 in the 5 weeks we've been waiting to find out? Because I'm a Google heavy person. I Googled it like 1 week in and was like, could it be this? And they were like, well, we're not going to do that till we rule out everything else. So anyway, we get the call, went to the hospital. And I was just trying to stay strong for my wife and my kids. Obviously, I don't want my daughter to see me cry. I don't want my wife, I want her to hold it together. And we processed it completely different. Couldn't be more apart, right? I immediately started looking up survival rates. I was extremely positive about it. I was like, we're going to kick its ass. It's fine. I was trying to keep good energy, still making jokes. And then when no one's looking, I'll have my own feelings, you know what I mean? But I couldn't do that in front of them. Whereas my wife kind of just shut down. And I mean, she's just starting to heal from it now, years later. But she stopped talking. She wasn't eating as much, lost a bunch of weight. I started talking a lot, ate a lot more, and gained a bunch of weight. Couldn't be more different. But we kind of grew apart there for a minute too, because we were both so stressed by that diagnosis. And you start worrying, man. Before that, we were like, oh, vaccines, should I vaccinate? We're like looking into that, You think you have control as a parent. You can feed your kids whatever you want to feed them and all that. Then you get that diagnosis. Now they have to shove all this chemo down there into their system. And you don't have the time to research all that stuff. You know, you can't. You have to trust the doctors now. They're the ones who, this is the protocol. This is the survival rates based off these medicines. Just got to trust the doctor. So
yeah. And you guys saw like an oncologist, like
all the specialists.
Yeah.
We were at Children's like Cancer Clinic of Nevada, I believe. But yeah, it was the one at the doctor when she got the diagnosis, the one we went straight into. Even then, I remember thinking, should I get a second opinion? And I'm like, well, I don't know how that works. I don't know if, I don't want to make it get worse. I don't want to turn down treatment now, So immediately we dove straight into it. And I was terrified the whole way. I'm like, what are the long-term side effects of steroids and chemotherapy and radiation and a spinal tap flushing chemo down her spine, And she's only 2. So small, And so, oh yeah, man, there was a lot of crazy feelings with that, dude. And that's when I started blowing up again as far as weight. But it also made me a better dad, because now that she's, I cherish every moment with my kids, right? I see some parents, it makes me sick, man, the way some people talk about their obligation as a parent. We're like in this generation that's, to me, in my opinion, extremely selfish. They don't make them like my grandma anymore. Women no longer seem to have that, they want to be a nurturer. They want to be a provider. They're selfless with their time. My grandma, they just don't make them like that anymore. I love being a parent, dude. It's the best part of my day. It's the best thing I've ever done in my life, spending time with my kids. And when she got sick, it just amplified that by so much. I have to spend every moment with them. That's why I only train a few days a week.
I get it.
Back then I was going more consistently. And even still, sometimes when I can, I'll ramp it up. But I guilt myself heavily for working as much as I do, and then going to syndicate, and then not getting home till 8. And they have school, so bedtime's 8:30. And a couple days a week, I'm just not there. And so them getting sick, I think, made all those feelings a lot harder for me to swallow down. Because I'm like, I could have lost her then. I'm just so lucky to still have her now,
Yeah.
But yeah, and that was supposed to be a short version of my answer. But yeah, no, it was a whirlwind of emotions, man. I never cried like a baby like that in my life, And then me and my wife have never had something distance us so much. And but in the end, it brought us all back together and a lot closer and a lot more thankful for our tight-knit little family.
Everything is in hindsight, right? And, relating to you, and I'm glad everything worked out, man.
Yeah.
That's fucking amazing. That's an amazing story, by the way.
It's a blessing, man.
Yeah, it's wild, which I can't even, it's hard to put yourself in that position, right? Like if you've never gone through it as a father and all that stuff. And that is the silver lining in all of it, right? Like it's hard to imagine, especially when you go through it. And I know it's different circumstances, but it's hard to, I see the silver lining in it. Like this is, to me, the ultimate kind of test, right? It's almost like, well, like what I said before, this is what you've been training for, bro. Right? And I think that's why people, what I noticed and the feedback that I get from people when they found out is like, and people that I don't normally talk to either, when they reach out, they're like, I don't know how this could have happened. You seem so healthy.
Right.
Like you look healthy. Like, you know what I mean? You're like, I post stuff on Instagram all the time. You're doing martial arts all the time and lifting. And I think that's what like, kind of gets people. But yeah, I think there's a silver lining to everything. I think everything that I've done is kind of training for this moment. And then I already know on the other side of, that, right? Here's another thing, is that if I do whatever I could, meaning if I continue to do martial arts and maybe adjust my eating, to make it optimal to whatever, and if I just put myself in the present moment and live every day and feel the fucking ground beneath my fucking feet and not go too much into the future or think about what happened in the past, if I've done everything I could to quote unquote try to beat this cancer, which honestly, I'm just trying to live life. I'm not even trying to beat the cancer. You know what I mean? If I put the inputs in at my deathbed, what do I have to regret?
True.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You've done all you can, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's no, well, maybe if I should do this. It's like, nah, like what do you mean? That's just, you can't, the cliche stoicism thing of you don't have control. Well, that's what it is, man. But you have to be, the silver lining and the reframe is that you have to be kind of aware that you've done what you could to the very best of your abilities, right?
Right.
And then if they don't play out, they don't fucking play out. That's just how it is, regardless of if you got cancer or not, or if you should have done this, or if you should have done that.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of my way of thinking. And, I think there's a lot of like things that we say, we have a lot of values and principles and stuff like that, that we'll kind of read and all that. But are we going to do it when shit hits the fan? Right?
Right.
I mean, here we are.
Which is really the only time it counts, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Like everybody's really cool to be around and really inspirational when everything's going good.
Right.
But as soon as shit hits the fan, you see who someone truly is. Big part of why I like jujitsu. I've heard someone talk about it. Can't think of it. You've probably read their book. You read a lot. But they were saying how jujitsu kind of shows you like you can't escape this mountain. You start seeing people under pressure. You don't see them in their car happy after they had lunch or in the office or when they come to a sales call at your house being all professional and nice. You see them sweaty, angry, and pissed off. Things ain't working out for them. They're getting mounted by some dude who might not have washed his rash guard. It's kind of smelly, And so they're getting pissed, they're getting flustered, and you see someone's true character. You can't hide it.
Yep.
You can't hide your true personality in jiu-jitsu.
Under duress.
Right.
Yeah.
Not after a few rounds. Mm-hmm. Little struggle brings out someone's true character.
Yeah.
And
that's so true.
You've already been a true character. And so, it's always surprising when it happens to someone like you who's already healthy and active and positive, right? It's always surprising when it happens to someone like that, but it also tends to be the people who survive it the easiest, the most, right? Because you're already halfway there, bro. You've already won the mental battle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and our evolutionary minds can't help but take you to the worst places because we're built to survive,
Absolutely.
But in the short life that we've lived it, man. You literally went through like facing your daughter's death.
Yeah.
There's this shit that we're not conscious of like the things that we've been through. Right? Like, it's like we don't think about that on a daily basis because we're so caught up in work or providing for our family, which we should, I get it.
Right.
And all the other shit that goes on in your head, like, damn, why did I burn the steak? Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
The minuscule things that we think about, but then when it's time to again get down to it, like you built yourself for this moment, man. The things that are gonna come in handy, like have you been doing jits? You've been doing jits, and then you kind of fell off, but got back to it. That's a fucking skill.
Right.
It's kind of like that's resilience.
Right.
It's you could have not went back to jits, and could have been just lazy and been 280.
100%.
Right? 280 pounds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it went the other way. Like, there's no ways of looking about it. You could have either gone that way or gone that way.
Right.
Or, it's just kind of like, all right.
You touched on it earlier, because if you've done it, it's easier to get back into it. And that was something I wanted to talk about a little. You've met my dad. You see me at the gym on Sundays. We have our Father and Sunday workout, right? And my whole life, my dad's been a gym rat. He's 62, still in great shape. So I grew up seeing the gym, and although I fell into some unhealthy eating patterns, just overeating, and gained that weight, it was always normal to me. It was always comfortable to me to go to the gym. I've had friends in the same spot as me, and I'm trying to get them to go into the gym. Any one of my friends that did, my cousin Chris, I had a couple other friends come with me to the gym. They'd double their strength because they never worked out. In like 3-4 months, they'd be doubling their bench, doubling their strength. they'd lose the weight, they'd feel better, and they'd get anxiety even walking into the gym. They felt nervous to even go. They couldn't picture the change that it could make to them. So they'd say, "Oh, I don't have the energy. I don't have the time." You've heard all those excuses too, right? When you grew up around it, or when you've already done it, like you said earlier, it's so much easier to know what it's going to do for you, how it's going to make you feel better, how to just go into the gym. No one's looking at you. No one cares. Get your workout in, you know? Even my wife would sometimes be like, it feels like people are looking. I'm like, trust me, no one's looking at you.
No one,
you know what I mean?
Everyone's thinking about themselves.
Everyone's thinking about themselves,
legit,
right? And anytime I do see someone who's not in great shape at the gym, I'm like, let's go. You know what I mean? I'm proud of them. Dude, my dad, every time we're on the Flamingo one, there's one guy there, he doesn't have legs. He wheels himself in there and nubs his way around the gym. My dad's like, what's your excuse again? Were you a little hungover, a little tired? I had a little fight with your wife or something? What's your problem, you know? Get into the gym, man. Stop with the excuses. I just think I got very lucky having the dad I have, because I was able to grow up around the gym and that healthy mindset. A lot of people don't have that, man. From my friends to my cousins to my wife, I've seen it. It's so hard for people to go to the gym if their parents weren't active. So as a parent, my number one thing I'm trying to push off on my kids is I bring them to the syndicate sometimes so they can watch dad roll. I bring them to the gym anytime I'm there. They're in the play area. And then I have a bit of a setup in my garage. I want them to be so comfortable around weights and self-improvement atmosphere that they would know anytime they're stressed or depressed, that's where you go. That's where you go, unless you're ready to just lay down and die. Like, you go make yourself better. Go do something, right? So I just wanted to touch back on that, because I think that's one thing a lot of people overlook is how lucky guys like us are to already have done it, because now no matter what happens in our life, we always have that to fall back on, right?
Yeah.
We can always get back into our outlet of stress relief and self-improvement. It feels natural.
And, I like that you do that, because at the end of the day, it's all about behaviors. It's not, okay, so here's another thing, right? Like, and this will relate, the thing that me and Jerry were talking about was like, what if Jerry, our coach, BJJ coach, just told you what to do and just didn't roll?
Right.
And he was
Which
like,
a lot of places do.
Yeah, he's like overweight a little bit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, it's just like, what?
I'm not going to call out gyms, but
yeah,
you see that a lot.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, like what? Right? Like, I guess you'd be just doing it at it just because you go to that gym and he's built a business.
Right.
But yeah, how would you feel? So where I was getting with that was like, if Jerry didn't walk it like he walked it,
right,
and he just kind of told you what to do, and he was just like, yeah, all right, and then he just kind of walking around, again, a little bit overweight.
I don't,
like,
but
whatever.
you should,
yeah, exactly.
Right.
How would you feel about that? And it's almost like, so going back to your circumstance, it's the same damn thing.
Yeah.
You walk it like you walk it. You walk it like you talk it. Like,
right.
That is behaviors. You have to show your kids that, not just tell them, right?
I think it's what made our gym better, and I think it's what makes kids better. But no, on the gym level, it is true, man. Even me, first day in class, what did I do? I was like, I want to roll with you. He's small. You know what I mean? I want to roll with him. I want to see what this stuff does. Like, this guy's small. I'm 220. I'm 6'2". He's like 5'6", 5'7". He's a small guy. I thought I could do something to him. Man, he did one of those jumping 10-finger chokes in like 10 seconds. I was like, what even was that? And then he like just played with me after that, made me breathe heavier than I've ever breathed. I felt like a beached walrus, you know what I mean? He submitted me a few more times and I was like, wow. But I've been to other gyms and open mats where I see the overweight guy who ain't even rolling, and I'm like, it's just weird. And that's why that gym has 9 students. You know what I mean? Because he won't roll with any of them, and he's telling them all to compete, but he won't compete. Our coaches compete. Right. Win, lose, or draw, we roll together as a team, and it's just different, Yeah. With my kids, I'm trying to do the same thing. I've seen the studies. They're pretty clear. If you have 2 obese, inactive parents, the odds of your kids being obese or inactive are extremely high compared to if even one parent is healthy and active. It's like it changes it by 50% more likely that now one of those kids will also be healthy and active. Yep. If both parents are, it's almost, it can never be positive, but it's so likely that your kid will follow in that footstep if both of you guys are healthy, active people. So it's something I can do better on, of course. I'm not perfect. I'm I want to drop about 20 pounds right now to be confident of where I'm at, but again, dad life. It's all balance, man. I don't say no to Wingstop on a date night if the wife wants it.
I never say no to Wingstop.
You know. But and if the kids want me to make a cake or whatever, I got to skip the gym and chill and eat some crap sometimes. But dad life comes first. But I'm trying to get that like 80-20 balance where it's 20% whatever and 80% healthy eating. Because again, even with my kids, I don't want them to see all processed foods. I really do eat pretty healthy at home. My daughters, I mean, they got all the good fruits and all the organic foods, and I try my best to not have MSGs and all the colored dyes and the shit in food that it's messing kids up, man.
Yep.
Honestly,
Yep.
It really is. We can dive into that. It's a whole podcast on its own probably, but our America's food system targeted at kids is just disgusting.
Yeah.
It's gross what we allow here. It's nuts. And I mean, all the way down to cancer-causing shit. It's like, why are these carcinogens banned in so many countries but not here? You know, so it just blows my mind. I try to keep my kids healthy.
For sure.
Yeah.
It just trickles out. And the only way you could do that is just self-education, right? Because a lot, and again, like we could go into another podcast, but a lot of, the stuff they teach you in education is made around that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they don't teach you a lot of things, and not even just health. It's just business. You go to business school. You don't learn about business in business school.
Right.
You learn absolutely
you read
nothing.
a bunch of books. I met my wife in business class. Yeah. No, it's true. 100%. And the food pyramid, that they taught us was not necessarily true, was it?
And now they're admitting it, right?
Right.
Like, it's crazy. And then
insane.
it's just like, we don't really care. It just, there's no consequence for that. It's like after you've been killing people for like...
It's insane.
It's crazy.
Right. How is one of the most well-off, countries, we just have the worst food supply and standards for our people's mental, physical, and financial health. It's ass backwards, but especially with kids, the amount of dyes and amount of commercials they put on them to get this new chocolate egg stuffed with this random new shit we just created, Yeah. It blows my mind, man.
Yeah.
Originally, when she got the diagnosis, I was worried it was something like that. I almost always think it's something to do with food, because food, you are what you eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're putting it in your body. So, I could dive into that all day. I actually got papers here.
No, for sure. We'll kind of, a lot of people, it's cool because I know I'm going to have you back on. Like for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's for sure.
Guys
There's like
us,
certain people that I want on here, because we could go fucking 5 more podcasts.
Well, guys like us, we do something once and we just want to do it even better another time. You know what I mean? You see this and be like, all right, there's a few more things I wanted to really touch on.
Yeah, but no, it was like, not that it's over already, but then, yeah, man, just, I wanted to have you on because of that. It's just, I think we're about at that age that we live different lives, right? Like you have kids, I don't, but we have similarities, right? Before this podcast, like we touch bases on text, and then you tell me you read my newsletter, and I have a high amount of respect for you for what you do with just, the dad life and the dad, but I wouldn't know how the fuck that is. I bet you it's the hardest thing in the world. You know what I mean? And I know it is. And the same with, going through stuff. And you told me before this about your daughter, and I was like, dude, and it really resonates now, obviously, and it hits, and it's just kind of like, wow, and just going through the growing pains of just living life, right? Like you had like like I said, I didn't even know, but minor surgery on your back, and it's like, dude, there's a lot of growing pains here. I've been fucking an alcoholic all my life, you know. It's just like the trials and tribulations, but then here we are. Yeah. Right? It's like, wow, just everything's in hindsight. And even nothing changes, man. Nothing changes. Even with this like diagnosis, nothing fucking changes. It's kind of like, yes, I'm going to go through chemo, but then you better believe like my habits, because like, you never know how you're going to feel, right? When you go through these treatments, I'll probably be upstairs throwing up and shit. But I know one thing that's proven is that the habits that we built for ourselves, and I know I've said this multiple times, but I'll say it one last time in like kind of a simplified way, is that your habits is like an addiction. It could fucking kill you, or it could be the best thing that you've ever done in your life.
Right.
just like going to the gym, because or just like going to jiu-jitsu or martial arts, because just like if you didn't feel like going and then your ass just got there because you didn't feel like going, that's what it's going to be. I already know. When I go through chemo and shit, and I'll just assume that I'm going to feel like shit, like hardcore. But I know somewhere in the spirit, in my soul or my habits, whatever the fucking biology is that relates to that, or my mind or my neuroplasticity, whatever, I'm going to get moving somehow. And I'm going to stick to the directive that I think is best for me to try to get me to fucking survive.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, I guess that was my whole point. But yeah, I think, with our struggles, there's something, that's why I wanted you on, because there's something to be said about that, especially with guys that are aged. We unpacked a lot of things.
Yeah, we're walking balls of habits. I 100% agree.
Right.
And I'm hoping it's, if anything, because I can at least understand how my daughter's process was. Chemo didn't always have her feeling horrible. I mean, plenty of days, the first few times, sure, but your body starts to adjust to it, which is normally a good sign. And then you find out that when your body is having a bad reaction to it sometimes, that's also a good sign because it means it's working. So it's like there's silver linings all over that journey, which it's a miserable journey, but still silver linings, and there'll be plenty of days you feel fine, and hopefully much less days that you don't. But in those days, like you said, your habits, it's all we are. I think I might have even heard that on your podcast, brother. You have so much good stuff on here.
I appreciate that.
But it was, we are nothing but walking balls of habits, we really are. Your habits will make or break you. I'm trying to just build up more healthy habits right now,
For sure. I mean, we're one quote that I really love is that we're never arrived. We're never arrived. We're always becoming.
Yeah.
Regardless of where we get to our quote unquote goals. And I don't even like to say goals anymore. I just like to say objectives. You know what I mean? Because the goals, a lot of people, they'll kind of, once they reach their goal, it's always the what's next. Let's keep up with the Joneses here. Yeah. It never stops. On
my diet too. Yeah, it can't be a goal. It can't be a diet. It has to be a lifestyle change. It has to be changing your relationship to food. So same thing with that.
And that's ongoing, right? It's not like all of a sudden you made it. Like you made $1 million, you made it. Nah, you're like,
Now where do we invest that?
Yeah.
Right? How do we make that continue to grow? Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a lot of good quotes, man. There was one you said on one of your podcasts, talking about alcoholism as well. It was from, I think you said it was from like a Harvard doctor who had said that when you do fall off the wagon in addiction, it's actually your brain learning how to kick it.
Yeah,
and the way you said it, the way you worded it, I was just like, holy shit, that clicks. That's good. That's potent, man. I sent that to my dad. My dad's big in AA, all through Vegas. He does a lot of the big meetings. He hosts them sometimes. He's been in it for years. He's been a recovering addict for my whole life. And so I pointed that one out to him and just worded it that way. And he's like, that is good. Because a lot of people fall off and they think, oh, woe is me. I'm such a piece of shit. I can't even do it for my kids or my wife or my family. I'm just worthless. And it's like, if you could just frame it in that light, it's a much more positive, constructive way to look at it.
Yeah, it just snowballs and it's very self-sabotaging when you kind of, you fall off. And then even if you've been sober for a year, right? And then you fall off.
Right.
To an addict, that's a very, very long time.
Yeah.
But again, when you fall off, you're learning how to quit because you're still trying to figure out those triggers, right?
Right.
You might have to adjust your environment. You might have to adjust like what triggers you.
Right.
Get the alcohol out of your house if you need to. You might need to go to extremes. Regardless, like you figure out like, oh, that's like wanting me to drink. Okay.
Right.
Oh, that motherfucker. Oh, work's stressing me out.
Right.
I'm going to quit. Right? Because like that's fucking me up, regardless of whatever it takes. What do you want to do, man? You want to be an addict your whole life? If you like, even as far as to quit your job, right? It's kind of like, what are we playing here, man? You want to play with your life? Or so you just learn like anything else. It's just iterations. Right?
Yeah. They're reps, right?
Yeah.
We were just talking about
exactly,
repetition, man, on all fronts. 100%, man.
But, yeah, man, I think that's good. We hit our mark. But like I said, man, we're definitely going to dive into...
Jeez, that was an hour? Let's go, bro.
I know.
I didn't even open the papers.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
I knew that, too.
Yeah,
I knew that coming in, too. I was like, we're just going to get into our conversation. But, man, obviously, I'd love to have you again.
I'd love to talk with you again, man. Because
Yeah.
again, just from your mindset, I benefit from people like you. You know what I mean? And that's why we came together, dude.
Yeah, likewise,
we're
my
both
friend.
interested in just being the best version of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm always here for you, brother. Really,
I appreciate
through
you,
the
man.
journey and everything.
You unpacked a lot of things, especially with what you said. That was very, very, you got very vulnerable and that was very, very deep. And to me, that is something that you can't pay for. Those kinds of vents and those kinds of advice and coming from a dad, especially with your situation with the surgery in particular and your daughter.
Right.
And to have known you all this time, and that's why we're both here, right?
Right.
It's like, oh man, we can definitely learn from each other. That's why I started this podcast, and
I love it.
regardless whatever happens, there's no regrets here.
Absolutely.
But thank you for coming on.
Good way to be, brother. Thank you.
let's
Thank you
go.
for having me.
Yeah.